there is prophecy of what is supposed to come.
Yes.
Right.
You can go through, if you'd like, you can go through Isaiah 47. That will tell you how a financial collapse hits this great nation in the end of time. Mm-hmm. You can go through Psalm 83, and that tells you about the war that Israel will end up with in Iraq and the nations that join Iraq in that war, and how that may well be the trigger to what will be, before it's done, World War III. You can go to Ezekiel 38 and 39, and that will tell you about the last war before what the war we see in Revelation. So, yeah, you're right. Prophecy is unfolding. And by the way, it's unfolding at lightning speed. 80% of prophecy has already been fulfilled. 20% is left. But my heavens, with what's going on in the Middle East, I think if we can't see right now that the Middle East is a trigger point, and that before this is done, the Middle East will be the trigger point for the entire world, and we've missed, and not just Bible prophecy, we've missed headlines. That tiny little place in the world, that tiny little strip of land, Israel, has received more condemnations from the United Nations than all of the other nations of the world combined. That is terribly unusual for a tiny little country like Israel to draw that much of the world's attention. But as you read the unfolding of Bible prophecy, as you get into whether you get into Matthew or Thessalonians, or whether you get into Revelation, if you're the brave of heart and wander into those, you see always that one thing. Israel is the center point, the centerpiece of unfolding Bible prophecy. And America is sort of in the midst of all of that as a big brother protector for Israel. And at some point in time, Israel loses that big brother protector. And for them, that creates a spiritual awakening that history has been calling for and waiting for a couple of thousand years. So what I spend a lot of time doing, Sean, very honestly, is I spend a lot of time looking at history, Bible prophecy, and headlines. History, because it shows us everything that is going to happen because it has happened before, and the patterns don't change. For instance, you look back at 500 BC, Egypt fought what is known as the Sea People. Nobody knows exactly who they were. But the Sea People were a fearsome admiralty. I mean, these people were sailors, and they conquered nation after nation after nation around Egypt. Egypt decided not to fight them on the water. They decided to wait and fight them on a land battle, because Egypt had a good army, not a good navy. They're a desert country. So they waited. And when the Sea People came aboard, they beat them. But it was a Pyrrhic victory, because the Sea People had conquered all the countries around them. All their trading partners were now conquered. And by the way, the Sea People left scorched earth. They salted the fields, everything the Romans did. So they left a scorched earth behind them. Egypt's trading partners were gone. And over the next several generations, actually over the next few generations, Egypt died because they had no trading partners. If you look at China right now with Belt and Road, the Shanghai Cooperation Agreement, and with BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those combined control about 70% of the population of the earth, are a part of those. And what's their whole goal? To replace the US dollar as the reserve currency of the world. Saudi Arabia has just joined. That's important because, as you recall, Saudi Arabia is who saved the dollar back in 1972 with Richard Nixon. When he took us off the gold standard, the dollar went into free fall. Nixon had to send Henry Kissinger to the Saudis on bended knee to say, listen, what we'll do is this. We will promise to protect you forever if you will make the US dollar the petrodollar, because that will prop up the dollar and give us time to adjust to a non-gold standard. Saudi agreed to it. Saudi Arabia went along with the deal. We have been protecting them all these years. However, President Biden has chased them from our to being out from being our ally to the ally of China, and they have just signed a pact with with Iran rather. That's dangerous because it's Iran that will be the tipping point with Israel to lead us into World War III. And now most of the Islamic nations around Israel have signed a cooperation agreement with Iran. China, on the other hand, with Russia, is undermining the dollar in a very real way, taking away our trading partners. We're going to be facing very quickly the same fate that Egypt faced when all the surrounding nations around them were conquered by the sea people. So, yes, prophecy is unfolding, and the finances of the world are dramatically changing. And the leadership in the United States is paying no attention. They keep telling us all is well, all is fine. But listen, we're $33 trillion in debt. The dollar in my lifetime has lost better than 90% of its value, probably closer to 98% of its value. When I was a kid, and it was a long time ago, just after the horse and buggy days, but I went to Saturday matinees and saw 2 movies for a dime. We would take an extra dime to get what we called then a lime phosphate at the local drugstore. You'd sit at the counter and get a lime phosphate, talk with all the guys, and your mom would come and get you after a while. Life has changed. I wouldn't let them, if I had kids now, I wouldn't let them go to the movie by themselves. I mean, I wouldn't dream of it. I wouldn't dream of letting my kids go to the mall by themselves. But when I was a kid, we played outside until 10 o'clock at night during the summer. Yeah. But just part of life. But our culture has changed. Life has changed, and life is changing and is going to be changing much more radically in the next probably several months and perhaps a few years even.